Every major idea that changed the world began with someone willing to be wrong. Thinking without risk isn't thinking. It's safe daydreaming that keeps you busy but never moves the needle. First, do pick the easy, polite answer. First, do avoid the messy what if, because risk feels costly. But skipping risk only mutes curiosity and turns bold questions into routine notes. Stay with me for a few minutes, and first we'll show 3 tiny experiments you can run today to test ideas without breaking anything, how to spot when playing safe is actually a trap, and 1 quick habit that makes bolder thinking automatic. No lab coat required. If you want ideas that actually change things instead of just sounding smart, this is for you. 1. Risk as a source of reality. Outcomes of risky choices show whether our ideas line up with what actually works. When first put something into the world, a product, a question, a small action, the result forces a verdict. That verdict is reality. It's the difference between what first thought would happen and what really happens, plain and simple. For example, a founder launches a simple version of a product to see if people will spend money on it. They learn fast. Another person asks a colleague for honest feedback and discovers a blind spot. Short trial, big clarity. These quick tests are not reckless gambles. They are experiments designed to expose truth with small cost. Think of them like opening a window to air out a stuffy room. Sometimes you get a breeze, sometimes you get a shock, but you can't ignore the smell anymore. First, treat small, managed risks as ways to get reliable signals. First, start with a micro test. Look for clear outcomes and adjust. If a conversation goes poorly, first learn about tone. If a prototype breaks, first learn about materials. If a social post flops, first learn what people actually care about. This approach turns ambiguity into data and data into decisions. It's not heroic, it's practical. Practical steps are simple and concrete. Run low-cost pilots that limit downside. Decide in advance what success looks like. Use stop conditions so you don't keep throwing good time after bad. Ask direct questions and measure responses. A single call to a potential customer often reveals more than a week of internal brainstorming. Small risks give crisp answers. They cut through wishful thinking. Treat errors as information, not shame. First, do not hide from what goes wrong. First, record it, parse it, and use it. That mindset makes reality less scary and more useful. A little humor helps. Sometimes reality tastes like burnt toast, but at least now first know to turn down the heat next time. 2. Why do we exclude him? Exclusion followed a clear assessment that his continued presence posed concrete risks to the project's goals and to other people involved. We do a risk check, identify the harm, weigh the benefits, and decide. He crossed lines by acting in ways that increase liability and reduce trust. For example, he leaked confidential notes after being reminded not to, and he pushed vendor choices that benefited his side gigs. Those are actions. They matter. He did not just disagree. He repeatedly bypassed agreed processes. When approvals were required, he routed work through informal channels. When deadlines mattered, he delayed deliverables without warning. When meetings needed collaboration, he dominated the conversation and ignored follow-up tasks. Each time, first document and escalate issues. Not because first enjoy paperwork, but because patterns of behavior need evidence. That makes the decision defensible and impartial. Practical concerns also drove the choice. Confidentiality failures can cost clients money and trust, and conflicts of interest can invalidate decisions. If a team member sells the same service the project is choosing, first recuse the person to protect the outcome. If someone refuses safety checks or misses compliance steps, first remove the source of risk rather than gamble on hope. It's like swapping a leaking boat mate for someone with a bucket. The second choice keeps the ship afloat. We framed the exclusion as a last resort and as a protective act, not punishment. Warnings were given. Expectations were clarified. Support was offered in the form of coaching and clearer boundaries. Yet the risky behaviors continued. So we act to protect the group and the work. That's why he was taken out of the loop, to stop repeated actions that undermine the mission, not to label him forever. 3. What remains of thinking? When procedures replace risk, what often stays behind are habits dressed up as insight. In many organizations, first do routines, fill forms, attend scripted meetings, and follow templates that promise safety. Pilots and surgeons use checklists to prevent avoidable errors. Those lists preserve attention to detail, but do not guarantee fresh thinking. The difference matters. A checklist catches a misstep, while an original solution asks whether the step should exist at all. A handful of mental tools survive when real inquiry is gone. People use heuristics, simple rules of thumb, to speed choices. Confirmation bias means first do seek facts that fit the story first already like, and that is normal, not shameful. Social cues also remain. A team will echo the loudest voice, so consensus can look a lot like consensus thinking even when no one has tested alternatives. Online platforms amplify familiar views, creating quieter spaces for new ideas and louder rooms for repetition. What remains, then, is often performance more than exploration. Meetings become rehearsals where first present confident-sounding answers rather than wrestle with uncertainty. Compliance checkboxes and scorecards keep things measurable, but numbers can obscure blind spots if we stop asking why the numbers matter. Even creativity can survive in the margins. Someone prototyping a small change, tinkering with a spreadsheet, or sketching on a napkin. Those tiny acts are the ashes of real thinking that can still spark a flame. Practical moves revive what's left. First, ask one simple question. What would first try if failure were affordable? That reintroduces a little risk and produces different actions. Rotate roles in a meeting so someone explicitly plays devil's advocate. Run quick experiments instead of writing long memos. Prototypes show where assumptions crumble. Encourage short, public postmortems where people explain what they did, not who was right. It's not mysterious. When first make space for doubt and for small stakes, thinking shifts from a practice script to a real search for answers, and sometimes even leads to surprisingly useful mistakes. 4. Safe ideas. Organizations and teams often favor incremental, low-risk ideas because they cut down on immediate disruption and make short-term planning easier. A safe idea usually changes to something small, a wording tweak on the homepage, an extra logging statement in the back end, a checklist for deployment. These moves reduce daily friction and protect the existing system. And that protection has value when stability matters. For instance, when a service supports customers who depend on it every hour of the day. Think of it as tightening the bolts, not redesigning the engine. Safe ideas also carry predictable outcomes and easier rollback paths. First, run tiny tests behind feature flags and collect simple signals like click-throughs, error logs, or user feedback before first expand anything. This keeps my mistakes small and my learning fast. But playing it safe all the time can quietly do harm. The product grows only sideways, creative muscles atrophy, and opportunities that require a bigger leap slip past. It's like walking in a circle, comfortable, but you end up where you started. To get the benefit of safety without the cost of stagnation, first pair careful implementation with deliberate exploration. First pilot changes in a limited environment. Set clear success criteria, and prepare quick rollback plans so a trial stays a trial. For example, a UX designer might A/B test a new checkout flow with a small audience segment before committing to a full rollout. An engineer might deploy new observability tools to a single cluster first. First, keep experiments short and measurable. That way, first preserve reliability while still discovering what scales. Culture matters too, and first do work on that directly. First, encourage team members to surface small, safe fixes alongside one wild idea each sprint. And we treat failures as information rather than shame. First, create time and a modest budget for prototypes, so wild concepts can show results without threatening the main product. Simple practices, pre-mortems, kill criteria, and sandbox environments mean first can try something risky and still sleep at night. By doing this, first get the best of both worlds, steady operations and the occasional leap that changes everything. 5. The illusion of life without risk. Many people behave as if absolute safety is a reachable goal, stashing cash under a mattress, refusing new projects at work, or deleting every unknown email, when in fact everyday life is full of trade-offs. Seat belts lower the chance of fatal injury and crashes, but do not stop collisions from happening. Storing money in a low-interest account keeps it safe from bank runs, but lets inflation quietly shrink its buying power. Refusing to change jobs can protect against short-term uncertainty while guaranteeing missed opportunities. These are concrete examples that show the illusion. Actions that feel like removing risk often just move it around or shrink one danger while enlarging another. Our brains prefer certainty, so people pick options that eliminate a small, visible risk even if that choice increases overall exposure. This is why someone will spend hours fixing one tiny problem in a project and ignore a dozen moderate ones that together matter more. First, do over-inspect the obvious things sometimes. And that's fine if first notice it. It becomes a problem when first ignore broader consequences. No blame here. Just a spotlight on a habit that can be changed by simple questions. What risk am first actually removing, and what new risks appear when first do that? Practical examples make the point clearer. Buying insurance protects me from a big financial shock, but it doesn't mean first no longer need an emergency plan or a backup income source. Taking medication can reduce the likelihood of a serious illness while carrying rare side effects. Accepting the vaccine trade-off lowers community risk and safeguards many people even though it isn't completely risk-free. Starting a business slowly, testing a product, selling to a small group first, reduces the chance of catastrophic failure while preserving upside. First, do small pilots before committing fully, which feels safer and smarter than declaring something risk-free. So what works instead of chasing a fantasy of zero risk? Measure, prioritize, and accept manageable exposure. Use multiple safeguards, diversify investments, build emergency funds, require seatbelts, and update software. Simple acts that reduce harm without pretending danger vanishes. Treat risk as a set of choices, not a moral failure. Rather than saying first am risk averse, say first to avoid high downside bets and first plan backups. That change in wording helps me take practical steps. Humor helps too. A life with no risk would be like an elevator ride without buttons, quiet, flat, and missing the good floors. Risk-free thinking is like rearranging old furniture. Safe, neat, and never exciting. Key takeaways. Small risks teach me more than perfect planning. Test ideas quickly first, rather than waiting for guarantees. Separate your value from a single outcome first, and turn failures into useful insights first. We don't need sudden leaps. Run small experiments first, gather quick feedback, and pivot if something isn't working. If you find yourself playing it safe, try one small, low-stakes risk today. Email someone, try a short prototype, or say yes to a new idea. If it fails, it's information, not shame. If it works, it's fuel. If you enjoyed this, leave a comment about the small risk you'll try. Like and subscribe so we can continue exploring together, and share this with anyone stuck in a thinking rut. Next time, we'll tell you about the abuse of analysis as a substitute for action. Ready to think a little bolder?